First, I'm going to take one of my images. Here, I'm going to use this play image. It's a JPEG. I'm going to right click and I'm going to open it with Paint. I'm going to save it as a bitmap. And what do I want? I'm going to call it folder icon .bmp. Okay, so where did it go? Here it is, folder icon.bmp, because I don't want to mess with the size or anything with this JPEG. So I'm going to mess with this new one that I saved. So again, I'm going to open with Paint. It's a bitmap image. I'm going to resize it. I want it to be, I don't know, it might work with a 75 by 50 pixel. It just might, I'm not sure. But now that it's a bitmap image, my goal is basically a 50 by 50 size, but like I said, I'm going to see if this 50 by 75 size will work. As a bitmap image, I want to rename it and just change the extension from BMP to ICO for ICO. Yes, I do. If you change a file name extension, it might become unusable. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes, I do want to change it. Now, this is the reason I wanted to do that. Change the JPEG to a bitmap, see if the dimensions were 50 by 50 or close, and then change the extension to ICO. The reason is, like these two folders over here, I gave it an image instead of just the typical folder. I wanted to give it my own image. So you have to use icon files for that. And you can create an icon file if you first save something as a BMP file, and then make sure it's like 50 by 50 pixels. And now watch if I turn into a liar. I right click my folder in question that I want to change, hit properties, go to customize, see folder icons. You can change the folder icon. If you change the icon, it will no longer show a preview of the folder's contents. Anyway, I want to hit change icon. I want to go to browse. And I want to go to the folder in question. This right here went to a folder called 3D Stories. That's not what I want. So I go to desktop, audio list, images, and this is what I want. I could try the smile ICO, or I could try the folder icon ICO. This is the one I was curious, because when I see this image, it'll remind me what's inside the folder. So I click that, hit OK, apply, OK, and there I go. So now I know when I want to go to this particular folder, I'll have that reminder of what my little project was. So after a while, you look how many folders I have on my desktop. I might want to be reminded of what's inside, what particular program's inside. Okay, so now that I've finished that little aspect, I want to go over the code for this little snip. I think I've already done a video with something similar to this, but I'm going to do it again. And I want to say thank you again to the Adam Corey tutorials on YouTube, because he's where I got the idea to do this. He did the code for an audio list, and I just basically changed the images and added some MP3 files to enhance this particular thing. So when you go inside the folder called audio list, there's audiolist.html. That's my web page. Then I have two other folders, one that's called audio. For obvious reasons, I've got 4 MP3 files. They're 4 children's stories that I got from the library that I just read. Okay, so then I go back out of that, and then I have a folder called images, and you can see the images that I was playing with. I messed around in Paint and tried to create some images, just some random images. I definitely started the project off with the play button and the pause button, but then I decided instead of using this button to, as a pause button, I wanted to use some other kind of thing. I think I wound up using this Smile Ico image. Alright, anyway, and I just showed you how I turned my LW underscore play button.jpg. I saved it in Paint as a bitmap. I double checked that the dimensions were close to a 50 by 50 dimension and changed the .bmp to .ico so that I could use it as my folder representation. Okay, anyway, enough of that junk. So I showed you what's in the audio folder and the images folder. Now let's look at the web page code itself. So I'm going to right click this and edit with Notepad++. And here we go. We have our doc type declaration. We have our opening HTML tag, our opening head tag, our meta char set equals UTF-8 tag, our title that says audio tracks. We've got some CSS that starts on line 6 all the way to 17, so not very many styles. So we'll go over the styles real quick. I have a class called wrapper, and for the element that has the class of wrapper, it has a border of 10 pixels wide outset and a width of 500 pixels. There's a class called trackbar, and for the element with the class trackbar, it has a background set to $DDD, a height set to 50 pixels, and a font family set to sans serif. Then there's a class for trackbar colon nth child parentheses even. Again, this is courtesy from Adam Curry's tutorials on his YouTube channel. Background is set to $EEE, and these are colors. Then there's a class called play button, and the following styles go to the element that has the class of play button. Opacity is set to 1.0. You can change that to give it a more transparency. I just have it set to 1.0 here to remind me that I could use opacity and change it to any digit that is between 0 and 1. So like 0.5, 0.7, 0.25, whatever. Right now I just gave it a solid 1.0, which means that it doesn't have any opacity at all. The lower numbers will give it more of a clear, a more transparency. The display is set to block, the float is set to left, the width is set to 70 pixels, the height is set to 45 pixels. That play button is in images, it's this play button right here. That's the dimensions that I set it. The float is left, the width of 70, height is 45, margin 2 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels. Background URL, background colon URL, and in parentheses in the folder called images / the name of that image I just pointed to, LW underscore play button.jpg. No repeat. And then the border is set to none, the cursor is set to pointer, and the outline is set to none. Then we have a style for the class of play button, and it's the hover event. So when you hover over the play button, again, the opacity is set to 1.0. You can change that so that when you hover, it might start off as being slightly transparent, and then when you hover over the play button, it will become solid, or vice versa. So you would want to set your play button's opacity and the play button's hover opacity to two different things if you wanted to see a difference in the hover. Again, I've just got both of them set to opacity 1.0, so you don't see a difference when you hover. But if you want to see a difference, then you change one of these opacity settings. Then for the element that has the class of track name, we have float set to left, color set to $000, margin set to 12 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 14 pixels, font size is set to 20 pixels, and the font weight is set to bold. So that finishes all the styles of this page. Close this up. Let's look at the script. The script starts from line 19 And this is the JavaScript. And it goes all the way to line 108. And then you've got the end of the head before we go into the body and the images, the elements that you can physically see in the page. So let's go through all this nice JavaScript, which allows us the functionality of the page. Alright, so we start off with function underscore parentheses ID. And in this function's block, we have a single statement. Return document.getElementById parentheses ID. So everywhere that we use this underscore, a parentheses, and then some type of argument to replace the parameter called ID, it's so we don't have to keep typing this document.getElementID over and over again in the code, which you have to do a lot in JavaScript functions. After that, we have another function. This one is called function audio app, and it goes from this curly brace all the way to this. So you got a lot of stuff going on in this function audio app. Okay, so back to the beginning. Function audio app, there are no parameters, so you have the empty parentheses. Line by line, var audio equals new audio, var audio underscore folder equals audio and then a / and that's in double quotes. This is the name of the folder that I have my audio files in. Remember, if I show you, if I go back to the audio list folder, see, the folder is called audio. If I called it audio Z or Lisa's audio, then I would have to change this to audio Z or Lisa's audio before the /. Then we create another variable called var audio underscore ext, which stands for audio extension, equals, and this is the extension of the audio files I'm using. I'm using MP3 files. So the variable audio underscore ext is .mp3. If I were using OGG files, then my audio extension would be .ogg. The next variable, var audio underscore index equals 1. Var is underscore playing equals false. Var playing track, so we're just creating the variable here, we're not setting it to anything. Var track box equals underscore parentheses track box in quotes. Again, this underscore right here is the function. So it's, instead of us having to type all of this, document.getElementById track box, we just have underscore parentheses track box. And that's going to go into the variable called track box. Again, thank Adam Curry for the code. Okay, var tracks equals, so we've got an object here. So we're using curly braces and we're using key value pairs. So on the left hand side of the colon we've got a key here, track 1, and on the right hand side of the colon we have, in the list straight brackets, we have find spot on the left, comma, find spot on the right. The find spot on the left of the comma is the name of the book or the audio file that you're going to see in our audio list, and on the right, this is how the MP3 is spelled before the .mp3 extension. So that's the first song. Well, actually, it's not a song. It's me reading a storybook, but it's the MP3. Then there's a comma, and we do the same thing for all the other stories that I read, the other MP3 files. So this represents the second MP3 file. Again, on the left, where this is like our key on the left hand side of the colon, and then on the right in the straight brackets, the name of the story that you see in the output of the web page, and then the spelling of the MP3 file that's actually in the audio folder. Comma, do the same thing for the third, and the same thing for the fourth. After the fourth track here, we don't need to put another comma. We just close this whole thing up with our closing curly brace here and stop the whole statement with our semicolon. So there's that. Then we've got a for loop for var track in tracks, and here is the for loops opening curly brace. Let's see where the for loops ending curly brace is. Right here to line 62. So I'll try to close this up a little bit. See if I can see the whole thing at once. Here is the whole for loop. Let me get rid of all of the spaces so we can just look at the whole for loop block all at once. Okay, so var track in tracks, all of this is going to happen. We're creating a variable called TB, and on the right hand side of that assignment equals, we have document.createElement div. So we're going to create an element, which is a div, and we're going to assign that to the variable TB. We're also going to create an element that is a button element, and we're going to set that equal to PB. Document.createElement div again, and we're going to set that to TN. So here's three variables where we're creating elements, divs, buttons, and divs, and giving them abbreviated variable names. Then we're using those variable names with the dot operator, and so we have tb.className equals trackbar, pb.className equals play button, tn.className equals track name, and then for the tn.enterHTML, we're setting that equal to audio underscore index. We're concatenating with the plus symbol a period and a space, as enclosed in the double quotes. We're concatenating after that tracks, index track, index 0. Alright, so that's going to deal with this object, this tracks object up here. And since we have two things here, we have the name find spot, which would be 0, and then this naming of the MP3 file would be track 1. So we're basically pulling out this part, the name with the space and everything, the output that you see. The next line we have, let's see, is here. pb.id equals tracks. Again, we're pulling out that track object, and this time we're going to do the second one, not the first one, because the first one had an index of 0. So now, out of tracks, we're pulling out this part. This part was track 0. This part is track 1. Then we've got this line of code that says pb.addEventListener, and in parentheses, this click is signifying the click event. Then you've got a comma, and what do you want to do when you click? You want to call the switch track function. Alright, so pb.addEventListener, parentheses, click, comma, switch track. Then we have tb.appendChild, parentheses, pb. So tb is that create element, that div. So when we use tb.appendChild, after the div is created, we're appending the pb to that, which is the button. See? Create element button, we're giving it the pb variable name to use it. So after we create the div, we're appending a button to it. And then we also have tb.appendChild tn, which is creating another div. Alright, so where did I leave off at? tb appendChild pb and tb appendChild tn. Then we use trackbox.appendChild tb. After the trackbox appendChild, we tb a div, another div. Then we take audio underscore index and increment by 1. So when we first start, the audio index is created at 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we create audio index with a value of 1. After we do the first iteration of the loop, audio index will be changed to 2. And then we'll do that entire loop here again for every single track in our tracks object. So if you, right now, our tracks object has 4 tracks in it, 4 children's stories as MP3 files. The more we add, the more times that loop is going to go. So if I copied and pasted all this and went from 4 to 8 and then just changed the track, this on the left, track 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then created 4 more stories. On the left hand side here would be the name that you see on the web page, and on the right hand side it would be how we spell the MP3 without the .mp3 extension. However many you have is however many times this for loop will loop. Alright, so I've done the for loop from top to bottom. What's next? Okay, what's next is we have audio.addEventListener, and in parentheses we are going to listen for the ended event, and in which case when the ended event happens we have a comma. We're going to call this function here, and the function block is everything inside of the curly braces here. We are using the underscore, which again is our simplified version of get document. Wait a minute, it's the simplified version of, let's go back up here. Document.getElement by ID. So we don't have to type all of that. We just use the underscore and we're good. Okay, so document get element by ID playing track dot style dot background equals, and then in double quotes we have Earl parentheses images, which again that's the folder, /LW underscore play button dot JPEG. And that again, that's that button that I showed you that I created into an icon so that I can see my folders, an image for my folder instead of just a folder. So it's used twice. It's used for this, and it's also inside of here, and it's also used down here as that JPEG image. And when I run the web page to show you the functionality, you'll see that. So it's being used twice with 2 different names. Alright, in this case it's being used for the output of the web page, which again I'll show you in a minute. Then we have playing track equals an empty string, And then you close up your function curly brace. You close up your parenthesis that starts right there, beginning and ending parenthesis, and then you put a semicolon to finish this whole statement. Alright, after that, let's look at the function called switch track. Alright, function switch track starts at line 63, goes from this curly brace all the way to 93. A lot of stuff going on for the switch track functions. Function, switch track, parentheses, event. We have two if conditions, so nested if statements. The first if is underscore playing. If that's true, then we move on to the next line. If playing track does not equal event.target.id, if that's true, then is underscore playing equals true. After that, we use that underscore, document get element by ID, parentheses, playing track, dot style dot background is equals URL, and in parentheses images / LW underscore play button.jpg. Next line, event.target.style.background equals URL, parentheses images / smile.ico. What this is doing is when you click on a particular list item in our audio list, it's changing that particular row from this URL, which is my play button, to this URL, which is pointing to the smile.ico image. After that, we have this line of code, audio.source equals audio underscore folder plus event.target.id plus audio underscore ext. This variable audio underscore folder is representing this images folder. Okay, we just set it equal to the variable name audio underscore folder. Then we concatenate with the plus symbol event.target.id, which is let's see, is the ID this or is the ID this? It might be this because that's the name of the MP3 file. And that makes more sense because we're using the audio underscore folder, which my name is just audio, plus event.target.id, which would be the name of the MP3 file without the .mp3 extension, and then we concatenate with the plus symbol audio underscore ext, which we created to be the .mp3 extension. So that makes sense. Audio, inside that we have the event target ID plus mp3. That's going to be assigned to audio.src. So now whatever we click on is going to be the audio source. After that, after we determine what the audio source is, we're going to use this line, audio.play, to play it. Let me squeeze all these lines together for space purposes. Okay, so after these two if conditions are decided to be true, then all of this stuff from here to here will execute. If these two if conditions are not true, it's going to bounce down to this else, in which case the else block goes from this red curly brace to this one, And if the else block runs, then we're going to audio.pause. Is underscore playing variable is going to be set to false. The event.target.style.background is going to be set back to that play button image. And then that's the end of the else. That's for the inner if the inner if is true. If the inner if is not true, just the outer if is true. If this is true, but this is false, then this whole if else will be ignored, and this outer else will execute. So if the outer else executes, then is underscore playing is going to be set to true, and event.target.style.background is going to be set to URL images / smile icon. Okay, so then after that we have another if condition. If playing track does not equal event.target.id, if that's true, then this will execute. Audio.source equals audio underscore folder plus event.target.id plus audio underscore ext. Again, this is the name of my folder audio. This is the name of whatever it is that we just clicked on, whatever MP3 file the name that we just clicked on, plus audio underscore ext, which represents .mp3. All right, so then there's the end of for that, and audio.play again. So actually, I'm sorry, this is the entire outer else. It goes from this red curly brace to this one. All of this stuff will execute. Finally, the end of the function switch track, right before the ending curly brace, we have one final line of code here that's playing track equals event.target.id. So the event.target.id is put into this variable called playing track. There's the end of the function switch track, the end of the function audio app. Before the very ending script tag, we have one more line of JavaScript code. Window.addEventListener. We're listening for the load event to happen, and when the page loads, we're calling the audio app function. All right, end of script, end of head. Now let's look at the body, which is extremely simple. The only thing we have in the body is div id equals trackbox and div. So everything that you see on the page that I'm going to run here, everything resides in this one single div that has the ID of trackbox. And your body and your HTML. So I've went over the entire audio list.html code from top to bottom. Adam Curry's explanation of all this will bring some more comprehension to the code. I just wanted to read it from top to bottom. Let's go on ahead and run it now. Launch in Firefox. So as you can see, we have alternating colors here. And that alternating color here, you've got this dark gray, light gray, dark gray, light gray. We get that from, hold on, let me put this side by side. We get this alternating colors with these rows from, where's that? Let me see, search, I want to search the word even, find the word even, and that'll take me to the code. Right there. This CSS style, dot track bar colon nth child parentheses even background EEE. So that must be this color right here, the lighter gray. Actually, I can test that right now since I'm not sure. And I'll just say background red. That'll let us know which one we're dealing with. Okay, so you see this would be 2, this would be 4, so on and so forth. That's way too loud, but I just wanted to show you so we could be sure. All right. So we originally start with this play button. Now you see when I hover over this, you don't really see any difference, right? What I was trying to explain with the opacity, the original opacity for the play button is set to 1.0, which gives it no opacity whatsoever. If I were to set the original to a decimal between 0 and 1, let's say I could call it 0.5. That means the original opacity will see some transparency here. See how there's some transparency now? It's really light and faded. Now when I hover over it, because my CSS style for .playbutton : hover is set for opacity 1.0, which means it's a solid with no clarity, no transparency at all. When I hover over it, see that? Now you see a hover, now you see a difference with the hover, and you might like that. So you hover over these different MP3 files, and when you click on it, it changes to that smiley face. And I don't know if you can hear it, but my MP3
no ordinary
is
man.
playing.
It once changed the course of a young man's life.
Okay, now I don't really like the opacity here. I preferred that when you click it, it just changes to that smiley face image, and that's good enough for me. I don't need to deal with this opacity, but if you prefer to not have a change of the image and you just want to have the opacity, when it's darker, then you know that's what it's selected, then you can do that. So there's a variety of ways to do it. I happen to choose the different image so that it really stands out as being something that's selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my opacity, my original play button's opacity of 0.5, and change that back to 1.0. I just wanted to show you how that works, and then you can change the functionality yourself. See, now when I hover, you can't really see what I'm hovering over, but when I click one, it's nice and dark. I prefer a nice dark image.
Spot wakes.
And so you could hear that's reading it too.
Spot fries.
Okay, again, these are children's books, but when you do this for your own, you could do this for your poems, you could do this for your reading of a recipe, directions for something else, songs that you create or songs that you save, whatever. Okay, so that's it. I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. The only thing this does, and you could take this and box this little thing up and put it in a web page, maybe have some type of border or whatever, so that you've got this little customized playlist for your web page. So this is just a little piece of something you'd use in something bigger. So back to this, I'm going to close up my styles, I'm going to close up my JavaScript, close my head, close my body, and all you see now is the simplest beginning of the audiolist.html with everything closed up. I'll close out of that. And one more time to show you the functionality, I'll turn the sound back up.
Spot writes, Princess Aladdin, the story of Jasmine. I love you when it's warm and sunny. Camping. It was a Saturday morning. It was sunny and it was hot. Find Spot. Princess Aladdin, I love you. Camping. It was...
So you see, each time I hit the play button, it starts the story at the very beginning again, and each time I hit another play button, it stops whatever was playing previously and starts the new thing that I've targeted all over again.